Hey, welcome back to the Smell of Blog channel. I am Ramona, and this is part 3 of what is the scariest thing a child has said to you. If you're interested in scary things, there's a lot of other videos like this on my channel. There's a lot of stuff on this channel. I like to keep it random. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, so here we go. Ready? My son was only 17 months old when he started to talk, but not very much, as he was definitely vocal. It started about 3 weeks after bringing him home, and he started being able to hold his head up on his own for short periods of time. And occasionally he would stare up at the corner of the wall. This went on for a week or so, and then he started staring at the same corner for a few minutes, and would follow something with his eyes, and would scream bloody murder. I would have to take him out of the room to console him. When he started to crawl, it was like something was chasing him, because he would crawl very slowly right to the edge of the room and look around for a few seconds, and then turn right back around as fast as he could, with this horrified look on his face, while crying, and he kept looking behind him as he was crawling away. He can now talk, and somewhat, but in the past few months I will take him to that room and play with him for a little bit, and cuddle him, trying to keep him occupied from this corner. But it never always fails, and he now looks at it, talks the baby talk to it, sometimes laughs and giggles. Other times he runs towards me at full speed, saying, "Ow, ow, ow, Mommy, ow," and crying all the time. It definitely has me worried. P.S. Sorry, that room he does all this in is off of our living room. I was babysitting 2 small children in a cabin on the coast of Maine. They had been asleep for a while, and when the younger of the 2, 4 years old at the time, came stumbling out of his bedroom, eyes open but rolled upward and unfocused, he said, "One of them is coming." He then walked into the bathroom, had a pee, and stumbled back to bed, where he fell down fast asleep. The whole thing lasted maybe 15 seconds. Sleepwalking kids are really scary. I do have to say this. For a semi-conscious toddler, he had uncanny accurate aim when peeing. I was impressed after my heart climbed out of my throat. A friend of mine actually told me his 7-year-old brother once approached him and asked him if he knew who the night man was. When I asked him who that was, he thought it was a joke. He told him that he should have, because he was the man who always went to my friend at night and kissed him on the forehead when he was asleep. He couldn't sleep for 2 days after that. My 5-year-old daughter climbed into bed the other night because she couldn't sleep. She was insanely giggling, which freaked me out by itself. I asked her why she was laughing, and she pointed to the corner and said, "Look." I said, "Look at what?" And she said, "The black man." I was effing terrified and couldn't sleep all night. My cousin was in a bedroom with me and my mom dropped something. She went under the bed to get it, and the cousin said, "Don't go under there. He won't like it." "I will tell my dad you hit me if you don't give me your ice cream." I was maybe 7, and that little shit's dad was huge with a massive beard. They didn't say it directly to me, but I was the only person to overhear the conversation. So I'm at this lake at my grandparents' campsite, and we're all eating supper. There was a group of little kids there, or my stepdad's cousin's kids or something, and they're all looking at the table watching the small TV my grandparents keep outside to watch football games. They were watching the Lorax. At this point, there's part where the guy becomes greedy and evil. Can't remember his name right now. And one of the little girls says, "You know, I hate people like that. I just want to stab them and eat their flesh." Then the girl next to her whispers, "We should eat Grandma." They both start giggling and conspiring quietly. I'm just sitting there with my eyes wide open, looking around to see if anyone else had heard what these evil little children just said. No one else heard, and they didn't believe me when I told them later. It was effing creepy. My great-grandpa, his name was Buck, died when his dad was about 12. I was approximately negative 16 years old. When I was 2, I picked up a family portrait with like 10 people in it, put my finger on him, and said, "Buck." I was the kid, if that counts. I'm still a little blurry on details, because I was asleep, but this is how I remember it. This happened when I was about 12 or 13, because I still share a room with my sister. I used to talk in my sleep. Usually things that my sister would make fun of for me the day after, nothing serious. One night, my sister heard me saying something in a language she couldn't understand. She thought it sounded Italian, so that's when she told me what it was. I went on for a few weeks before my sister complained to my mother about it. It was annoying the crap out of her. My mother was curious, so she waited until a time when I was asleep and stood outside our bedroom door to listen to it. True to form, I started speaking Italian, Except it wasn't Italian. My mother studied a few languages in school and recognized that language I was speaking. I was speaking Latin. I knew no Latin, and at 7 or 8 years later, I still know no Latin. My little brother used to get crazy hallucinations when he had a high fever. He was maybe 6 years old when he got one pretty bad. My mother was tucking him into bed. When she came into the room, his face was pale, and his eyes were wide open and dilated, staring at the ceiling. She went over to the bed to ask what was wrong. He told her to be careful, not to run into the 4 bodies hanging from the ceiling fan blades. I had a cousin who wasn't allowed to watch TV. His family was one of those that didn't allow screens. Once he was over at our house and we had the Discovery Channel on in the background, and it was a show on aliens, like the stereotypical big-head, oval-eyed ones. The kid pointed at the TV and was like, that's farthest man. And we all kind of did a double take and were like, what? And said, that's farthest man. He comes to my room and plays sometimes. My best friend's house had one of those bench seats built into the large front window. I don't know the technical term for this type of thing. But all the time that we lived there, they had these plants in it, and a couch in front of it. When my best friend's daughter was about 6 years old, my friend's wife decided to uncover the bench seat thing and finally use it. Their daughter used to love to sit on my lap and wouldn't leave me alone any time I went over there. So I would go over and see the bench seat thing finally being used and grab the daughter and say, let's sit in the new seat. She freaks out and starts screaming and clawing and crying and running away like a psychopath. She had never done this before about anything. After a few minutes of calming her down, my friend asks her what was wrong, and she says, I died there, and points to the window seat bench. That man that came at night hurt me and killed me there. I used to sit there and read and smoke cigarettes a very long time ago, but I don't want to sit there any more. After a few minutes of staring at each other in silence, none of us says anything about it after that, and we all hung out in the kitchen for the rest of the night. A few years back, my family and I moved out of this creepy old house that we had lived in. I'd always felt like something was out there, but they didn't believe me. Well, at least not until my father's friend, who was doing construction in the house, uncovered a cistern in the back. After that, weird things started to happen. Lights flickering, the residents feeling like we were being watched, seeing a shadow in the stairs, all things I had experienced in the house. The guy's daughter, who was about 3 or 4, and who would bring her to work sometimes, came up to him one day and asked if she could go play with the girl with no legs on the back porch. He got freaked out, covered up the cistern, and after that everything stopped. That house still gives me the creeps, though. My little cousin once said, the dead clown likes watching you sleep. He thinks you're very pretty. Safe to say I had insomnia since then. My 2-year-old just recently started to play pretend, I believe, and the past few weeks kept watching him having full-blown conversations with his big stuffed dog. The other night I watched The Conjuring, and about halfway through the movie I heard him in there whispering and then having a big argument with Rufus. That's what he calls him. I went down there and asked him what the deal was, and he told me Rufus told him he was mean, and that's when it started. Had I not been watching that freaking awesome movie, I don't think it would have freaked me out near as bad. My kid used to tell stories constantly about his other dad and his other mom. In these stories, the mom was always dead, and his other father was a trash collector. After 1,500 stories of this, I invited him along for a ride, and he started up. I said, wait. When did you have another dad? He said, before I came to live with you and Mama. So I asked him, where did you live then? He said, well, it was a place like this, but there were no roads or houses. People live in the ground under the mountains. We live in Florida, no mountains there. And every day, and everybody was always nice. And there were no cars, but the cars flew, and they didn't have keys, and we had to punch in a code to make it go fly. Okay, I responded. And then I asked, so how did you wind up being here with me and Mommy? He said, one day some mean people came and they were shooting bombs, and all the people and the bomb fell on my house. When I woke up, I was with you and Mama. What the F? He was about 4 years old. Another instance of the same kid freaked me out. I discovered that we were preparing to move. There was a foyer in the house, and we were renting, and I took pics, writing on the wall saying things like, get out now. Dear whoever you are, please get out of my house. Get out of my house now. In about 7 different places on the walls. He would not tell who wrote it. For months on end, I would ask, and he wouldn't answer, and he'd change the subject. Once he said, that time is over, so we don't have to talk about it any more. Then one day, out of the blue, I asked, "Did you write that to ghosts in the house?" He brightened up and exclaimed, "Yes, I did. They were very noisy and smoking cigarettes," and his face went blank. And then he said, "Nah, I was just kidding. There were no ghosts." Whenever I hear something about the moon, I always think of a Ouija board. If you ask a spirit where she is, they have the option of pointing either to the sun or the moon. The sun is heaven and moon is hell. When I was working at a phone store, I would read random things on the smartphones that we had on display. One day, I was reading about the shadow people. A 5-year-old boy came in with his dad and started playing on his phone. I asked him if he liked it too, and he said, "The dark one still walks tonight." I just walked away and stayed away. When I was too young to read, I assumed 3 or 4 or something, I'd have to ask my mom, I was taken aboard an old sailing ship off the coast of England by my mother. It was sort of a museum, I guess, and had plaques outlining all the different areas. Sometime after getting started, I started leading my mom by the hand to different areas, telling her, "This is where we ate. The captain slept here. Oh, and this is where we slept." She now truly believes I was some kind of sailor in a past life. My friend has a soon-to-be 4-year-old. This child is hands down the creepiest child I've ever met. I love her to death, and she's very sweet. But she occasionally does things that freak us out. She looks exactly like a demonic child should. Huge blue eyes, white blonde curls, absolutely angelic and perfect. When she was 2, she was supposed to be napping. Her mom and I were watching The Ruins. At one particularly gory part, she turns, looks at us, smiles really slowly, and we both freak out a little. Another time, I went to go check on her when she was sleeping. I had to pass through the dark living room to get to her room. Instead, she came walking up to me on her hands and feet. I think, Mama, how that little girl would walk. Gonna get ya. I almost kicked her in the face until I realized it was her. At my friend's mother's house, when Grandma walked in, she went running after her, saying, "There's Grandma! I'm going to kill her!" After watching Paranormal Activity, supposed to be napping, she'd walk around in a sing-song voice saying, "Toby! Toby!" And last but not least, one time I went to retrieve her from a nap when she woke up crying. I heard her, and she kept shaking her head, going, "Scary! Scary!" After a bit, when her sobs had turned to normal cries, she stopped suddenly, looked at me, head tilted with a big smile, and said, "Just kidding. He's not scary." And it was absolutely fine, like she was just wasn't sobbing moments before. I talked to an old man when he was young, and he lived in the loft and was nice to me. My mom always asked who he was. I just told her he was the old man. My mom figured he was a weird imaginary friend. Turns out the old man hung himself in the loft many years beforehand. My mom started moving out the next day, and when she and I came back to pick up the last bit of our stuff, all my pictures were sprawled across the floor, all face up. She decided that stuff wasn't worth it and left in a hurry. I remember the old man. He was kind and smiled at me and waved goodbye. In all honesty, I'm glad my mom left most of the pictures. I want him to remember me. I haven't had a kid say anything, but I will tell you what I said as a kid. A man committed suicide by jumping in front of a train before I was born and landing and dying in my yard. I had no knowledge of this. When I was 4 or 5, I asked my dad who was the man who got hit by the train. He said, "Why?" So I replied, "Because he was in my room last night." That effort still scares the shit out of me from time to time. I was maybe 11 years old, and my brother and I were hanging out. My friend looked up at this tree and said he saw some shadow thing swinging from it. I kind of freaked out because my brother and I couldn't see it, but he swore it was there. He went inside, and I guess it wouldn't go away. My friend looked above my brother's head and saw the shadow figure doing a rock, paper, scissors motion above his head, as though it were determining whether my brother should live or die. That freaked me out so much, but I was just glad I couldn't see it, or else my chills might have frozen me from right then and there. Not that creepy, but when I was around 8, I fell asleep and had this crazy dream that felt real, of me sitting on the side of my bed with my feet hanging off, and slowly getting up and leaving my room. That's when it all went black, and it ended. However, the next morning I woke up in pretty much the same position I fell asleep in. I went next door to talk to my older sister, and she asked me why I had a black eye. There was no explanation whatsoever, and it was a perfect, large bruise in my eye. So strange, really creeped me out for a while. There is video footage of me when I was about a year and a half old. My mom was singing to me when I stopped her, singing, "No, Mommy, me sing." So I sang. My voice started loud and started fading, and slowly faded to a quiet whisper. "Plane fall down, help me, help me, help me. Plane fall down, help me, help me, help me, help me." My son is 3, and earlier this year he totally freaked out in the bathtub like hysterical. I asked him what was wrong. He said, "The tiny tick-tock clocks are going to eat me." I said when my aunt's family, which included my cousin, who's a year younger than me, moved into their house, which was built in 1902, they were told nothing of what had happened, despite it being very old. When they were unpacking, my cousin, who was like 4 or 5 at the time, came downstairs from his room and said, "Mommy, the lady who lives here doesn't like your decorating." I was literally looking after my second cousin's son, who was about 4 years old, at our family get-together, and we had taken him to the park. I'll be honest, he runs the place. You do what he says. And there was about 4 or 5 pigeons in the field of this place, and my other cousin had joined me and him when he told us to go chase one of those pigeons. After that, we just started to chase them. He said, "Yes, while you chase them, I'll go chase this man away like the birds." Both me and the other second cousin, who had joined me not long ago, literally froze on the spot. It took about 5 to 10 minutes to just move one leg, because there was no man around. It was just the 4 of us girls, my sister, our 2 cousins, and this son of one. It was truly just a moment of fear. My co-worker told me that his 3-year-old, a very sleepy, willowy blonde girl with pure white skin, once told him, "I love you. I love Mommy, and I want to eat, and I want people to eat Daddy." "You want to eat people?" "Yes, Daddy. I want to eat people." When we were moving from Germany back to the States, my then 3-year-old daughter said to me, "Mommy, I'm really going to miss Emily." I racked my brain and could not, for the life of me, recall a friend named Emily, so I asked her what it was about. I'll never forget these words. She was setting her tea up, glanced up at me with the most casual smile, and said, "You know, the girl who crawls out from under my bed to play." When my neighbor's kid was 4, his dad had been in prison for 2 years after a felonious assault charge on the kid's mom and friends for trying to take the kid away from him. I watched him every morning when his mom was at work in the summer. Over time, he began calling me Dad because I spent more time with him than his real dad did. It lasted about 1 or 2 weeks, but I feared for my life at the time. My little sister didn't exactly say anything, but her actions made me uneasy. She was about 3 years old at the time. For a few weeks, whenever my mom would put her in her bed, my sister would point to the corner of the bedroom, get really upset. Sometimes she would just cry and repeat "no" over and over again. 3-year-old at the daycare I work at. "I don't like brown people." "Me? Why?" "Well, Mommy said I shouldn't. I mean, that's our future says. To me, no kid should learn shit like that." We were driving down the road with my little brother strapped in his car seat in the back. We went around the curve, and he said very seriously, "This is where it will happen." This is at a point when he wasn't really speaking in sentences yet, about 2 years old. I still drive very carefully making that curve, and I'm curious if something is going to happen there. Apparently, I was a creepy child. I once told my mom that there was a man in the kitchen who wanted to speak to her, and we were the only ones in the house. It was the day before my birthday, and that night my mom woke up to me screaming and crying, running through to comfort me, and she asked me what was wrong. I said, "Mommy, am I going to die?" She told me, "Of course not for a very long time," and asked where on earth I got the idea from. I replied, "The man standing in the corner told me he was dead, and that's why you couldn't see him in the kitchen earlier." When my niece was about 3 years old, she talked about how there was a guy in one of my bedrooms in my house. When I asked her who the guy was, she said, "No, his name is Guy." One night, before putting her to bed, I asked where Guy was, and she pointed to the corner of the room just behind me. She's now 6 and has no recollection of Guy. A few months ago, I was at work when a mom and a kid, maybe 5 or 6, walked up to the counter. When I said hello to the kid, she said, "What's your name?" I said, "My name's Elkie." "Nice to—" "No, it's not," she said. I laughed and asked, "Okay, so what's my name then?" "Your name is Marjorie," she said, and then left to covet some pastries. My grandmother, of whom I am the spitting image, was named Marjorie. She died 20 years ago. Well, I think that's enough for now. Hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Go check out some more, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.